Yeah, I'm going to read an extract from a novel in edit called Rats with Wings. And just a bit of background. Two cops, Lech and Kate Lewis, are on a supposed jolly in Brighton one summer's night. But Lech, let's just say, is a bit of a bad penny and has got a bit of an ulterior motive. Okay. Kate Lewis shut the car door and took a last drag from her cigarette before flicking it on the gravel. She wiped the back of her hand over her nose, which had started to run. She'd been doing lines since the afternoon, and it was now almost midnight. "Fucking hell, Lech," she said. "Where the fuck are we?" "The country," he replied. She looked up at the big house. "What are we doing here?" Lech smiled. "Summer's night. Bash at a country house. It'll be fun." She clocked the sweep of cheap disco lights in her downstairs room and screwed her nose up. "Come on," he said. "Let's just say hello." The door opened so quickly it was as if the woman behind had been waiting for them. Kate had to stop herself from staring. The woman was an eyesore. Middle-aged, short white skirt, fat legs, boobs hanging out of a corset. Never mind mutton dressed as lamb. This one looked like carrion dressed as mutton. Lipstick showed on her teeth when she smiled. "Taxi?" the woman asked. Kate sniggered. No," said Lech. "We're friends of the Stedmans." The woman found this highly amusing. She tossed her head back, her drunken eyes slitting as she laughed. "I'm so sorry, love," she said. She threw her arms around him. "It's been a long night. I'm Sue, by the way." "Sorry we're late," said Lech. He had one of those plastic smiles he wore when doing a house call. Got lost on the way down. "You know what, love? Must be something in the air. You're the third couple who've lost their way tonight." "On the road, that is." She gave him a slap on the arm that hurt. Taking each by the hand, she led them across the spacious hall. "Let's find Andy, sort you out some membership." She stopped. "I am right to assume you two are newbies?" Lech nodded. She smiled warmly. "Well, no need to worry. We've all been in your shoes." She reached out, one hand patting Kate's, the other patting Lech just above the waist. "My advice to you is just relax and have some fun." Kate gave her a confused smile. Lech hadn't said anything about anything in the car, just told her he had to pay someone a visit. She flashed him a look, but he was plastic smiling at Sue, who was smiling back, and Kate noticed her hand had left his waist and appeared to be stroking his backside. "Shall we?" said Sue, pushing the door open. Stepping inside, Kate clocked the room, copper's instinct. A large lounge, red walls, no paintings, cream carpet, moodlit to the point of dusk. Off to the side, guests were gathered around one of those home bars people with money like to buy. More guests were seated on posh sofas or helping themselves from a buffet table. A jolly man with a beard waved. "There's Andy," said Sue, hooking arms with Lech to walk him over. Kate left them to it and made for the bar. As she waited her turn, she clocked the partygoers. Middle-aged, tired and slightly dishevelled, like they'd been dancing to ABBA all night and were ready for the taxi home. It was depressing, like seeing the future, parties with food, crap music and ready for bed by midnight. Apart from her, the barman was the only one who wasn't past 30. Quite cute too. She flashed him a smile. He gave her a nod to say, "You're next." Taking a cigarette, she asked the man standing beside her for a light. He produced a silver lighter, cupping the flame. She gave him a wink of thanks and pulled away to exhale. "Haven't seen you here before," he said, stepping closer, too close for her liking. He was a little rodent of a man, and she blew smoke into his face to warn him off. "Just got here," she said. His eyes blinked, and he moved back, but only briefly. He licked his lips as if tasting the smoke. "I'm glad to hear that." "I'm not staying long. My friend's got some business to see to, then we're off." "And what about you?" he asked. "What about me? Do you need seeing to?" He said it matter-of-factly, eyes studying her. "No," she said very casually. She slid off the stool, making sure that her heel ground into his foot as she did so. "Sorry," she smiled. The man flinched, but as she withdrew her heel, she was surprised to see a smile. "Can I buy you a drink?" he asked. "I think you've had enough already," she said, and turned her back on him. There was no knight in shining armour about Lech, but she was pleased to see him all the same. "You done?" she asked. "Not quite." He looked pensive. "This part is strange," she told him. "Sure, you've been to stranger ones." He laughed. "No, Lech, I really haven't. Can we go?" "I told you, need to find someone. Just be patient, will you?" He saw her expression and softened. "Look, once I'm done, we'll go to Brighton. Go to that rave if you want. Just have a drink. Grab something from the buffet. Actually, best leave the buffet." "What are you on about?" Lech shook his head. "It's nothing. Here." He reached into his jacket to pull out a wrap of coke. She gave him a look that said she really wasn't happy about being here. "Don't be long, Lech," she told him. "I won't. Promise," he replied, but she didn't trust the smile he gave her. Kate was simmering in a swirl of alcohol, cocaine and impatience. She hadn't moved from the bar stool for 3 martinis, and Lech still hadn't returned. She'd spent the time watching the party, in the reflection of the long mirror that ran behind the bar, and the more she saw, the more strange it seemed. It wasn't just that they were a bunch of sad oldies dressed up like they were at some MTV party. It was the way they were interacting. There was a lot of drifting in and out, small groups of 2 and 3. The whole party seemed strangely disjointed, like it was going on somewhere else. From the corner of her eye, she saw the man with the rodent face wandering her way, and decided that now was probably a good time to find Lech. She picked up her drink and walked to the end of the room where the French doors opened out onto a patio. She heard the splash before she saw the swimming pool. Idly giving it the once over, she had to double take with the realisation that 2 people were fucking in a corner of it. The sight shocked her, but not in a bad way. It just surprised her, and she couldn't help but gorb. Wet hair, long and dark, licked the top of the water, shooting a spasm of tiny ripples across the surface. A wet grip on the side of the pool slipped, bodies shifting to bring a partial eclipse of the underwater light. On poolside loungers, 2 couples sat, facing each other, and Kate looked over, willing them to catch her eye and share her "oh my God" smirk. But they didn't. And now she could see why. Because the outlines, blurred by the glare of the halogen lights, were becoming clearer. She saw the mesh of hands and legs and fingers, and the pleasured distraction playing out on their faces, and in a moment it all clicked into place. Jesus. It was so obvious now. Some bloody copper she was. The strange clothes, the looks, the couples, Ratman. Lech had brought her to a fucking swingers party. There was a slow moan from the corner of the swimming pool as if to reinforce the point. That dirty bastard, fobbing her off with some story about meeting an old mate when all along he'd just wanted to come along and get his own end away with somebody else's wife. She began to stride towards the kitchen, scowling at anyone who looked her way. She'd seen a taxi card on the fridge. She'd call a cab, go to that rave, catch the early train back to London, on her own. Andy and Sue were the only people in the kitchen. The 2 hosts were bickering, harsh tones wrapped up in soft voices. They stopped when they saw her come in. Sue went back to the pile of washing up stacked on the side. She wore a bathrobe and flip-flops with plastic flowers sitting over the toes. Andy was leaning against the kitchen counter, stroking his beard. Dressed as a cowboy, his face was red and shiny. "Having a good time?" he croaked. Kate pointed to the fridge. "Taxi," she said. Andy nodded and jumped as Sue banged a bowl on the draining board. "No need to break anything else," he muttered. "We'd had that chair for 20 years, said Sue. "You should